Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health Radio and TV. I'm your host, Sara Banta. I'm a health coach, natural supplement expert, and a busy mom of three. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you are notified every week with my new podcasts on Mondays and Tuesdays. And if you haven't already, join my free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. I teach you on a daily basis with tips and tools to enhance your health. There's no downside. You will be a part of a like-minded group to support you on your journey, in addition to truly taking control of your health. Happy Valentine's Day. And in honor of Valentine's, we have Dr. John Gray back. He's the author of the most well-known and trusted relationship book of all time, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I was talking to a colleague today. I mentioned that he was going to be on the show, and she said, oh my gosh, he changed my life. So very well known. Obviously, Dr. Gray's books are translated in 45 languages in more than 100 countries and continues to be a bestseller. Welcome, John. How are you today?
Well, I'm very happy. Thank you. Happy to be on the show with you, Sara.
Awesome. Well, we are talking about ways to get your libido back. But, you know, I think you and I, John, take it for granted that most people know what libido is. What is the meaning of libido?
Well, libido is interest in having physical intimacy with your partner. It's feeling attracted. You don't have to have a strong libido. You don't have to feel sexual attraction all the time, but it must come upon you quite regularly. That's what we want. For me, understanding what I know about relationships, which we'll get into in terms of sustaining a healthy libido or bringing back a healthy libido, these are all within the realm of possibility. But people have to understand, how do people lose libido? What happens? And then how do you get it back? And if you haven't lost it, how to make sure that you keep it going. And maybe we talk a little bit for a moment about the benefits of a libido. There's nothing more powerful, in my opinion, okay, and you follow the logic here. There's nothing more powerful for lasting health and vitality and energy than having an active libido. I'm 71 years old. I have a very active libido with someone I deeply love. And that's the key. There's a lot of people who are addicted to sex. They can just go online and see some pornography and they get turned on. And that's not a healthy libido. That's sex addiction. Right. So there's sex addiction, and then there's making love, sex where you're making love. And that's the key to being able to sustain your libido in the same relationship. See, the whole point is that sex gets better and better as you get older with your partner. You get to know them better. You begin to experience something that everybody wants. Not everybody knows what it is, and not everybody knows that it's what they need. And that's called love. You know, when you eat ice cream, for those who like ice cream, you feel love. I love it. Okay? That's the feeling of love. Now, that isn't real love. That's the feeling of love. But to be able to have that feeling of love, when we talk about love for a person, to sustain that love for a person is so good for your health. And when you have, you know, you can love the planet, you can love your children. That's a really key thing, is loving your children. That's different from love and libido. Because when you have love is a function. When you're feeling love, there's a lot of blood flow in the limbic system of the brain. That's the monkey part of the brain. Attachment, is feeling love, feeling hate, feeling anger, feeling happy, feeling joy, feeling. That's your limbic system of your brain. Then you have more the logic center, the higher center, detached, get over it, move on. That's your prefrontal cortex. But regulate your health and your vitality and your longevity and all that good stuff is good old primitive brain. This is the unconscious brain. And that's your sex drive. It's hunger, and it's sex drive. Those two most important drives. Okay, you get hungry, so you eat food and you can then live long. But then, so what's the point of living long if you can't live forever? And that's your sex drive, making babies. Right. So whether you're actually making babies or not, your body needs to think that you can make a baby. Otherwise, why take care of you? And that same part of the brain that makes babies, our sex drive, that is responsible for your vitality, for your health. It was, what kept people moving was the desire for food and the desire to procreate. These are built into our evolutionary mechanisms that as soon as you disconnect from that, you're disconnecting from your real potent life force. You still have life force and you can still be happy and fulfilled to various degrees, but you want to have real vitality in your life as you get older. Sex is a very, very wonderful part of people's lives, but sex is something you don't. Okay, so that's one thing. Benefits, great health, but better benefit even than great health and aliveness is if when you have sex, you're doing it not for the pleasure. You're doing it because when you have pleasure, you fully feel it. See, if there's pain you want to avoid, typically you want to run away from. And when there's pleasure, you embrace. You want to attach yourself to pleasure, right? So that awakens our feelings. So when something's very pleasurable, we're able to open ourselves to it and feel it without resisting it. So when you can feel pleasure, you've just awakened your higher self, the ability to feel the love that's in your heart. So it's a doorway to feeling what's inside. Now, some people, when they become sexually aroused, become angry, for example, because now they're in touch with their feelings. Mm. Some people, when they start feeling sexually aroused, they start feeling scared and they have intimacy problems because it forces you to feel. And now some people just get lost in just the pleasure, and that becomes a sexual addiction, which is non-personal. So for people that have resistance to personal feelings, they don't want to feel the fear of intimacy or feel the anger that's in their heart, if it's in there, or the love which is there. Because, if you love someone and they reject you, it hurts. So I don't want to feel that pain again. So sex, by its nature, causes us to feel. And a lot of people are running away from their feelings all the time. So they shut down to sex because what we want to do is use the sex to express what we feel, to focus our attention. And it takes practice. All it is taking practice rather than negative feelings coming up when you start to feel, have positive feelings come up. And it's literally, I can feel with my right foot. I can put my attention on my right foot and feel that my right shoe and the sole of my right foot. And I can now go to my left. See, we have a lot of choice on what we feel. I can choose to think about the shooting that just happened, and now I can feel compassion for those people. And if I dwell on that longer, I'll have tears in my eyes. And then I'll get angry because the reason there's shooters in the world, by the way, is because there's so much divorce. That's why. There's no shooter that ever did any of this bad stuff that we see in the world right now who grew up with a father and a happy mother. See, it takes a husband and a wife in a moment of love to make a baby. And to grow that baby in a healthy way, it takes a mother and a father to love that child. Now, that's the ideal. Not all relationships can work out, but the sadness is that people are just not taught. We have no teaching on relationship. It's so important, like what you teach people about health. We live in a toxic, polluted world, and we need to have new knowledge to cope with the toxic, polluted world that we have. And the same thing with relationships. We live in a toxic culture, which has forgotten the value of heterosexual marriage. Maybe gay, whatever, but the value of evolution is making babies through heterosexual marriage, and how valuable that is, how important that is. The family values have just been ignored. You don't hear that value being put up on TV. We have parades for people that can't make babies. Okay, so God bless them and everybody. That's certainly not the ideal, and certainly not heterosexual couples are the ideal. But at least they're trying to get to that place, and they realize their suffering is the lack of knowledge and how to create a successful heterosexual relationship that makes babies. Now,
something I want to just touch on as a mom, John, is, and I know you've done this as well, obviously, because your daughter works with you, is that I don't pretend that my marriage is perfect. I talk to my kids about how to navigate relationships with, because they're still too young, but I still talk to them about my downfalls in the relationship, my husband's, and how we work through them, and what are we going to do on Valentine's Day, and how do you approach a relationship. And a lot of the stuff that you teach me, John, I'm teaching my young kids, because they need to have it in the back of their brains when they decide to go into relationships and then marriage. And I just wanted to mention that, because I think a lot of parents are very afraid to talk to their kids about sex, libido, relationships, the fact that their relationship is hard, that marriage is hard, that, there's roller coasters up and down of libido and hormones and all of these things that go into it. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. But the libido and the stress of the last couple of years, I have noticed with my clientele that stress has taken them down hormonally. They're on the brink of divorce, a lot of them. And then maybe they've come back and they're now closer, but there's still that loss of libido and uncomfortableness on how to create that closeness again with their spouse.
It's such an important thing. And the problem is that sex has been so misused that we don't have this beautiful feeling around sex. We can't just openly talk about sex. And it's not appropriate to talk as adults about sex in the same way to children. So there's a distinction there. So a lot of confusion around sex, and let's just start clarifying it, which is the purpose of sex, if we're humans, is to share and express love. Now, what would that look like? It would be treat your partner in a loving way during sex. And that's, I wrote a book, which I'd recommend for any couple who's not having sex, to read the book together, called Mars and Venus in the Bedroom, because I have all the conversations done for them. So all they have to do is nod their head. It's the most difficult subject for most people to talk about, because we're most vulnerable in sex. So if a woman says to a man, what I want you to do in sex, like let's say she heard something today and came home and said, oh, this is what I like you to do in sex. And they've been married for 10 years. Well, why didn't you tell me 10 years ago? You mean I didn't do this for 10 years? He'll take it as criticism. It's already hard enough to talk to your partner about, honey, I'd prefer if you do it like, not say this, but say that. Well, what's wrong with saying that? Telling your partner what you want them to do can often sound like criticism. Now, telling a stranger, no big deal. But if it's your partner, the closer you are, it's harder to hear suggestions, because it can sound like criticism, because you mean I'm not doing the right thing? And now bring that down to naked in the bedroom. That's the most vulnerable place we can be. And it's also where a man has his whole self-esteem, whether he's aware of it or not. It's performance. Okay. And so that puts a pressure on her to respond with performance, puts a pressure on him to perform. And all that pressure inhibits the naturalness of intimacy, which should be safety, should be relaxation, should be at ease, should be comfortable. But it takes skill and it takes knowledge. There's a whole thing about female physiology that men just don't understand. And there's things about what a woman can do to increase a man's interest in having sex with her. Now, I know what the stereotype is, the man wants more sex and the woman's not as much interested. That's at one point, but then it switches where she's really missing that and he's not interested. Because once he's not interested, he doesn't know that he needs it. See, people don't always know what they need. Like, at 70 here, I talk to my men's support groups, how great my sex is all the time. They can't bear to hear it. And they just go, John, we don't really care about that anymore. What's the big deal? I've been there, been done it. I said, yeah, you're all going to die before me and you're not as happy. Okay. But see, if you don't feel that your libido, your desire to connect physically, emotionally, etc., if you're not feeling that desire, then not having sex is not a problem. So people go, oh, we're beyond that. We don't really need that. It's not important. Well, we know that when COVID came around, we had vitamin D deficiency in people. If you had vitamin D deficiency, you were more vulnerable to dying. But those people didn't know they had vitamin D deficiency. They didn't know that. So people don't always know what they need. And so what I'm saying, as my experience, 50 years teaching relationships, if you want to sustain a relationship in modern day today with the toxic environment we're exposed to, regular making love is essential, because life drains it out of you. It drains out that love and those good feelings that we got a glimpse of when we fell in love. It drains out, and we have to do something to bring it back. Hence, we have holidays like today, Valentine's Day, which, a lot of men go, what do you mean every day is a Valentine's Day? Every day I love you. I go, okay, good. Yeah, good boy. And what happens for women, because women are not men, we are different, is that women have a greater need. First of all, they have higher levels of estrogen. Whenever you're afraid, estrogen is associated with fear. Estrogen is associated with all emotions, the emotional part of me. If I'm angry or if I'm afraid and I'm feeling those emotions, my estrogen levels are going up. I was recently taking care of a grandbaby, holding the baby for 4 hours. I needed to sleep for 12 hours later. That's because in nurturing activities raises estrogen. And in a man, too much estrogen lowers his testosterone, and then he becomes tired. So testosterone gives men this male power of motivation to run fast, to achieve, to overcome difficulty, to go where no one's gone before, to endure pain without complaint, to suck it up and get it done. And men are losing that. Biologically, we're losing that today. And primarily we lose that because we don't have the proper roles. The roles, and historically, of man as provider, woman as homemaker, nurturer, it's real simple, is what kept evolution going. And now we've minimized that. Men can't provide anything for women today. She doesn't need him. And the more, like one of my clients where the woman is always unhappy with her husband, no matter what he does, it's not enough. Yet she says he loves him. She loves him, paradoxically. And she's a multimillionaire and he makes $500,000 a year. And to her, he's a failure. I said, if you were like a regular woman who didn't have all that money, you'd be so happy to have a husband who made $500,000 a year. You'd be so grateful. You'd find yourself overlooking things that aren't perfect. But you become a perfectionist when you're not getting what you need, just like you get sick when you're not getting enough vitamin D. So women's brains today are obsessed quite commonly with not enough. As a simple statement is, almost every woman I've ever had in my counseling room has said she's overwhelmed in her life. Overwhelmed, not enough time, not enough support, not enough money, not enough ability to do, because she's too far on her male side, because she's not supporting her female side, which is the nurturing side of her being. Now you're working here, but you're also nurturing people. So you get to be on your male and female side. Now, how many people get to do that? You'll see in Norway, where they have everything is equal sex. If it's not a government program, 90% of the nurses are women. Yet in government, it's always equal man, equal women. But when they have choice, women go to be nurses. Why? Because as opposed to the doctors are having the life and death decisions. Nurses are following. They're not feeling the weight of that responsibility, but they're nurturing. Nurturing for women is very, very important. Well, we don't live in a society that acknowledges nurturers. Nurses don't make as much money as doctors.
John, I want to go back to your case of the guy that's making $500,000 and she's a multimillionaire and she is a perfectionist. Have they both lost their libido? And is it because it's a physical downregulation of their hormones? Is it because mentally they're just going at it? Or what? Play that out for us.
Well, the short statement is when you're making love regularly in the bedroom, problems outside the bedroom are very small. That's just the reality. It's just not a big deal. The problems are not, see, all big problems started with a lot of little problems building up and building up and building up. And when those little problems build up outside the bedroom, which don't and what I'll call the problems is really, it doesn't stimulate behaviors that don't stimulate female hormones or male hormones. So the quick look at the spark, the libido, the interest in having sex with your partner. Remember that men who lose interest with sex with their partner, in most cases, are masturbating to porn. So they haven't lost that until they get old enough where they have no vitality left at all. I saw a man the other day, he was like pasty white, he hadn't had sex in so long. And, it's just, this is what happens to men. They just crash if they don't have their vitality, and sex is a major part of that. It's what keeps you young. It's where your body says, oh, you're a productive human being. You could make babies. Even though we're not making babies, you have the potential to make babies. And women who don't have the potential to make babies at menopause will start to go way down unless they're also having sex, because sex will keep giving the body the message, I'm still making enough orgasm to have enough estrogen to have an orgasm. So there's a trick there, is that we're not monkeys. You don't have to ovulate to be interested in sex if you're a woman. You need to have some behavior called Valentine's Day to provide a special activity saying, I still love you as much as I loved you in the beginning. See, this is what these holidays are, is they're there to serve the female. The female needs messages that she's special. And, men get messages that they're important when they make money. They don't look to their wife to be important. They look to their work to be important. And then their wife can appreciate that, yes. But women look to men to feel special. And if he doesn't treat her in a way that makes her feel special, her estrogen levels don't go high, and then she's not going to have high orgasms. She won't be able to be orgasmic. When a woman can be orgasmic, she's got the spark. Because what the spark, the libido, is testosterone. But there's two ways women can produce testosterone. They can just be like a man, but then they're exhausted at the end of the day, overwhelmed. The orgasm comes from estrogen. But the way her body is such is that when her estrogen levels go really high, there's another counter reaction where she gets the biggest surge of testosterone in reaction to estrogen going up. Women can also have estrogen go down and have a surge of testosterone, and she's not going to be orgasmic. She's going to be driven. She's going to be overwhelmed. She could also be addicted to, some women are addicted to clitoral orgasm. She could get addicted to clitoral orgasm as a result. When you stimulate the clitoris, that's increasing her desire to have sex. But it's not the major estrogen stimulator. It's intercourse that produces the high estrogen levels. So Freud talked about these two types of female hormones, two types of female orgasms. And of course, everybody says, oh, you're not a woman, you don't understand. But he knew exactly what he was talking about. All you have to do is give a woman an orgasm through penetration. It's very different from her orgasm when she's having her clitoris stimulated. Clitoris is foreplay to the big orgasm. She can have little orgasms, which we call a climax. A woman shouldn't put all of her focus into the clitoris. But women who are not so much in touch with their feelings, their estrogen levels don't go high, that's as much as they can get. And that's better than most. Half the women in the country have never had an orgasm. 25% have had clitoral stimulation without a man being there. And only 25% have actually had an orgasm in the presence of a man, whether it be clitoral or vaginal. So you got to hit the bell if you want passion to last. And for women to hit the bell, they have to have instructions. Man has to have instructions on how to provide the support she needs. So in a sense, he's the doctor and she's the patient. He does it to her. She doesn't do it to herself. And so there's a lot of men rushing in sex, not knowing it takes longer for women. Men are rushing. And in that rushing, she feels the pressure to get to the goal. And so she focuses on her clitoris to have some kind of release. but that's not a vaginal orgasm. The vaginal orgasm is what keeps the passion going, which is surrendering, allowing, and enjoying the pleasure and letting the pleasure express the love from the man's side. So I will talk a lot about, for men, saying things to the woman while you're having sex with her. I love you. You're beautiful. I'm so lucky I married you. You're the most special person in my life. I went to the store today and did this because I wanted you to have a nice evening. What I did for you today or this last week. This is silly, kind of sounds silly. It sounds silly even as I say it as a man. But when I say this stuff in my seminars and I said, how many women would like to hear stuff like that in sex? And they all raise their hand in an instant. Men don't realize the power of words. If you look at actual pornography, the biggest pornography for women is books. It's verbal. And for men, it's visual. And so, in our short time together, how to create the libido, it's good communication outside the bedroom that stimulates estrogen in the woman and testosterone in the man. So when women complain to men, you're lowering his testosterone. Men, when you don't listen to the wife in a way where she feels heard, you lower the estrogen in her. When you get mad and argue, as soon as you raise your voice, her estrogen goes down and stays down in your presence. You got to have certain manners that will promote sensitivity in women and desensitive and detachment in men. You can't get upset with your partner. Every time you get upset with your partner, you're just cutting down your libido a little bit more, a little bit more. And it's paradoxical because in the beginning, couples have big fights and arguments and they make love and it's great. But then it goes away. The only reason it was great is they got it all out. And if you need to get it out, go to a therapist. Don't get it out on your partner. So arguments and fights dampen our vulnerability. Sex for a woman, for a man to stay turned on to his partner, she has to be able to open up. And he has to be able to get it up, but she has to be able to open up. And her opening up is she has to feel safe. Now, meanwhile, while she doesn't feel safe and that she's not interested in sex or not responding sexually, he can go online and have fantasy sex and have a huge orgasm. It's just like huge dopamine. It's addictive. It's a very powerful, pleasurable experience. Has nothing to do with love. Yeah. And he will experience, in a sense, for a brief, short period of time, the same kind of feelings he had when he fell in love with his wife. That newness stimulates high dopamine. Also, lack of intimacy stimulates high dopamine. Intimacy over time takes away dopamine because familiarity sets in. So it's guaranteed that couples will lose interest in each other if they're depending upon newness to stimulate their interest. So what does dopamine do for a man? It raises his testosterone. What does dopamine do for a woman? It raises her estrogen. So what you want is a relationship that's not based on stimulating dopamine to be attracted to each other, but it's based upon communication skills and roles which stimulate estrogen in her and testosterone in him.
You've talked about ejaculating more than once a week will lower a man's testosterone.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Is there an equivalent, as you're talking about the different types of orgasm for women, is there an equivalent scenario where it affects the female hormones in her with the way she is being stimulated or the type of orgasm she's having?
Well, if you could give me a pause and talk a little bit about nutrition, my dog is creating some trouble and I'll be right back.
Absolutely. So yesterday I was talking about the supplements that are really important to help increase libido. And number one is the acceleradine iodine. And actually, before we came on, John was asking me what my favorite supplements are for increasing libido. And it's the iodine, because iodine, the acceleradine, specifically regulates estrogen production and cleans the blood so the liver can detox the estrogen properly. And it also decreases estrogen in the receptor cells, which helps reverse estrogen dominance. And I've heard so many couples talk about how their man is getting man boobs and he just doesn't have it in the bedroom anymore. And during menopause, she's lost her libido, and all of these things that are happening because the increase in estrogen dominance. So the acceleradine would be number one. Hormone fixer, as we were talking about testosterone, I love it. It focuses on raising testosterone in females gently and naturally. Nothing synthetic about it. It will increase libido, fat burning, energy, and that motivation and drive, not just in the bedroom, but outside. And as John's talking about the fact that what happens in the bedroom and how you feel in the bedroom is going to affect your hormones and your daily life outside. I also really love the Shine Spray. This increases testosterone in men and women, increases energy, libido, strength, immunity, stem cell growth, and helps with the mood. The accelerated thyroid, and this is another thing that John and I were talking about before we came on, is that if you're low thyroid, is it making you have fatigue and a lack of energy outside of the bedroom? What do you think is happening on the inside of the bedroom? Your thyroid is connected to your gonadal system as well, your HPT axis and your HPG axis. So it helps improve hormonal balance, increase metabolism, fat burning, prevent fatty liver. So if you can't see your belly button, you've got fatty liver, visceral fat. All of that fat is increasing the estrogens in the body, decreasing the testosterone. So it's really important to make sure that you keep that fatty liver under control, increase the metabolism, and increase your thyroid health. And the accelerated thyroid and the acceleradine help with that. With that as well, you are also getting rid of the excess estrogens that are stored in the fat cells. So as you lose the body fat, your estrogens or the bad estrogens are going to naturally decrease. And you add in the accelerated keto, which is going to help you intermittent fast, reduce the inflammation throughout the body, but it actually helps increase testosterone. So you take your accelerated keto in the morning, you're flipped into ketosis and fat burning. It controls the appetite, increases physical and mental energy, and teaches your body to use its own fat stores for energy. So then we're reducing the fat, we're reducing the estrogen dominance, and now we can look at how to get our libido back through what John is going to teach us.
So this is really important, Sarah, that if you've lost it, you really need the supplements to get it back. Because if you're having regular making love, you're making your thyroid's getting the stimulation it needs. Your body's getting the stimulation it needs. But once you stop getting that stimulation, your body stops producing what it needs to produce. So you need to bring in the extra support. And meanwhile, you need to practice. And this is whether you're in a relationship and you're having it, or you're in a relationship and you're not having it, is every Saturday night or a day of the week needs to spend a couple hours in the bedroom where the man massages the woman. It's about roles. Her role is to receive. His role is to give. So there's two ways to approach this, depending on who's most motivated. But the idea here is you have to do it once a week. And you had briefly mentioned something I always talk about because it's so amazing. The research showed this. It's amazing to see a study that contradicts the lies, okay? Because right now the porn industry owns the internet and massive money and so forth. And they keep telling men that masturbation does not lower your testosterone. It's a lie. If you look at it's true and it's a lie. We'll look at what's true about it is that if you start out with a certain level of testosterone and you masturbate, it will go super high and then it will come back down to baseline. And they don't have any long-term studies, except that we see the reality is men are masturbating now more than ever before with porn. And they can't even find college students who haven't masturbate regularly to do a control group in the studies. But we know that testosterone level declines. So let's just extrapolate from that and go that, yes, masturbation and porn doesn't lower your testosterone, but over time, what does it do? See, it's all going down, but there's no long-term studies on that. So that's, except that the long-term studies are that every year, the average male in America at any age, his testosterone levels are going down 1%, 1%. This is disastrous. But now we've got this great other study that's done on athletes who are 25 years old. They have sex on Saturday night and they ejaculate, because men typically ejaculate in sex. So they ejaculate. And then those men, they have sex, their testosterone goes up. When they're done, it goes down to baseline, just like pornography. But if they don't ejaculate for 6 days, on the 7th day, when they wake up, their testosterone levels are not at baseline. Their testosterone levels are 50% higher than baseline. So that means he's moving into sex with 50% higher testosterone levels. That's the guy you fell in love with. That's the guy who was motivated. That's the guy who was interested. That's the guy who's more engaged. He's not just thinking about himself, but he's thinking more about her. That high testosterone raises her estrogen. Now, we have research studies showing that when a man's testosterone goes up in the presence of his partner, he puts out a pheromone, a smell that raises her estrogen and increases her desire for sex. So basically, that is also a study done. Just as when women's estrogen goes up in the presence of a male, she puts out a pheromone that will raise his testosterone. So this is the collaboration between the male and female energies, but it has to start somewhere. Now, there is a technique I teach in my book, Mars, Venus in the Bedroom, which is if the man is engaged, he wants sex and she's not so quick to respond, which is one problem. Okay. Then what you do is you have a 3-step program. The first step is just be where you are. The whole thing is start where you are. Don't try to be anything different. So if he's horny and he's wanting to get inside of her and get his rocks off, this is what starts happening in relationships. After all the free dopamine is gone, it just becomes kind of him getting his need fulfilled and her accommodating him, as opposed to him fulfilling her need. See, that's the best sex, is when she's as interested in sex as he is. But sometimes biologically, she's not going to be there. She needs a bit of foreplay to where she then realizes, I want sex. So many couples, women will say to me, if we just start we go through the motions, after a while, suddenly I wake up and I want this sex too. That's normal, natural. What's happened there is he went through the motions of raising her estrogen. Then that surge of testosterone could come, and then she wants it. Now, if a woman feels very nurtured in her life all the time, she'll be the one who's got even a strong libido, but he'll be able to respond just like that. So that's not happening today. So what can happen is how to repair this whole thing. This is called polarity sex. They start out, he prepares a bedroom. Okay, that's his thing. He has to put some candles, play some nice music, maybe have some flowers in there. Would have been nice if he did that today on Valentine's Day, but he's still not too late. That you can do much of that. And then he basically says, I'm going to give you a foot massage. This is just to warm her up. Okay, now warm her up. That's step one, is just setting the environment. Second thing is she is now going to go to stage. That's the environment. Now we're going to go step one. Step one, he's horny. So he's kind of like, if he's horny, he's in a hurry. So if he's in a hurry, then it will slow her down. But you can't stop him because he's in a hurry. This is the horse ready to go. And she's like, well, let's see what's going on. So you live with that. You say, that's step one. You basically kiss and you hug, and he's got more energy than she does. And she knows her time is going to come. Step one is she gives to him stimulation. So she stimulates him during this time. He's got free reign over her and enjoying her. And she's basically saying, okay, this is just step one. I'm going to give him whatever he wants, whatever I feel comfortable giving and responding. But there's no pressure on her to have an orgasm or to be excited. She's just satisfying him. He's selfish and she's giving. Step two is where he realizes, if we continue on the way we're doing now, I'm going to ejaculate as the man, and it's going to all be over. And she would have done all this for me, and what did I do for her? So step one is give to him. He enjoys it. He's having a good time, whatever it is they do to have a good time. It's a little different for different couples. Then for me with my wife, it'd be we kiss and we touch and we hold. And I would actually stimulate her a little bit, come inside of her and then enter inside of her. But then when I realize that I'm about to ejaculate, we start over. I come out, and that's her signal. When I come back out, I put her hands back, and now it's her turn. So if that took 5 minutes, it's going to take 20, 25 minutes where I'm going to just love her and adore her. Because see, I'm right at the edge of my full satisfaction with the ejaculation. So I say, all right, put it on the shelf. And now I give to her. And now there's no pressure on her. There's time for her. I'm not in a hurry because look, I'm just almost there. So let me just put it over there. And she's not allowed to touch me in any way to excite me. I'm here to excite her. So we're just dissecting. He's receiving and she's giving. And then he gives to her and she receives. And what's so interesting is what she told me actually was, after I've given to you for a while, then I feel like I now deserve to receive. See, women who are not able to go so easy to their female side, give a little bit to him, but no, there's no ripoff here. It's not like you're going to be giving to him and it's all over and what's it for her. And you see it in the movies all the time. The man's all excited, he jumps on the woman, and she's back there looking like, how long is this going to take? You know, it's just like so sad. But so in the beginning, she's giving to him and she knows, okay, this is just part of his foreplay. Now we're going to do my foreplay. And so you start all over. You start with the kissing. Couples stop kissing. Kissing is so important for a woman's body. It's the first vagina. It's the opening. This one has to be kissed and tongue, but not pushing at her. She sort of leads the way in terms of he's not pushing at her, but they're gently connecting back and forth. The man should always try to mirror where she is in his excitement. And he can do that very easily if he's already gotten sort of the step one out of the way. So step two is he's now starting with the lips, with the neck, stroking the hair. Always start at the top of the body, generally speaking, under the arms. These are all places that need to be touched and rubbed. If there's any ticklishness in her, then he should rub harder, massage that area of ticklishness until there's not tickle. Tickleness is our childlike self. This is pre-sexual energy. So that means these are parts of us where the sexual energy is not flowing. So you should just massage those areas. And then with the breast, very gently, touching around the breasts until you get some action with the nipples. Not every woman's going to become erect nipples, but some do, and they like it. And then they get touched. They can be sucked. Sucking on nipples, if that's exciting for her, is a big oxytocin producer. Now, oxytocin is the doorway to increasing estrogen. Oxytocin, just the hormone itself, it tells her brain she's safe. And that then allows her to open up to him more, and her estrogen goes higher. So breast action, it's just north-south, okay? And you just have to come back. You're moving down south, and then you come back up. You have to tease her a little bit. So you're always teasing her. So it's never like right to the point. Now you're getting down south, touching her thighs, touching the vulva. The vulva is not the vagina. The vagina is in the vulva, but the whole area down there is gently massaged and touched and gradually feeling around until you're getting some kind of liquid response to move around her clitoris. Now, these are the ideals. You know, some women are so dry, you have to use lubricant. Okay. Ideally, his touching does it. Okay. You know, I'm looking at my lips right now and I'm realizing they're a little dry. Now, my daughter, she always puts that stuff on her lips. What's that called?
Blistex.
Is it again?
Blistex.
Yeah, if you put that stuff on, then your body becomes dependent on that. Okay. So that anytime you use lubrication, now your body's not being challenged to produce it. So I'm not really the big fan of slap it on and get going. You know, take the time to gently lubricate, or you can salivate with your fingers a little bit, but you want to try to pull some liquid out of her vagina up around the clitoris. So if you take the time to slowly build her energy up, then it can all be very natural. And then you do clitoral stimulation. Now, clitoral stimulation is gentle, very gentle, gentle, gentle. And if you push too hard right away, it can numb her. But, you know, men will do clitoris for, if they even get there, they'll do it like a minute. And to him, it seems like 5 minutes. But look at the clock. It's not 5 minutes. It's not 10. You know, you could spend a good 5-10 minutes down there if she hasn't been having regular sex, just gently stimulating the clitoris, teasing a little bit, circling around. You can do alphabet A, B, C. You can write her love notes. He's got to be doing something. Otherwise, it's too passive, just one little thing. And it can take time for her to warm up. It literally just takes time of stimulation down there. But the key to this is a woman shouldn't be trying to focus. And this is contrary, because she feels like, I'm starting to get excited, and she focuses. Now she wants to focus too much. And my point is, if you find yourself needing to focus on your clitoris for a moment, you noticed it, now relax back, relax back. There's no hurry. There's no rush. There's no demand that you have an orgasm. Let go of that goal completely. Your goal is just to enjoy pleasure, and then to enjoy him entering into you. If you put all your attention into that clitoris, what happens? There's nothing left for the vagina. It's like your whole energy gets released, and you had what women will often call an orgasm. I would call that a climax. Your energy climaxed, and you released it, as opposed to a vaginal orgasm is waves of pleasure, and it gets more and more. It's literally like, I think of it, my first scientific discovery as a child in the bathtub was that waves compound. Okay, if you push the water forward and wait for the water to come back, you join it, and now you have compounding waves. Okay, and then water splashing everywhere. So it's the same thing. As you let a wave happen, and you let it settle down, and you let another wave happen and let it settle down. So as the waves are rising, you're not just doing physical stimulation, but you're also doing verbal stimulation, which is he's saying loving things, and you have a conversation beforehand to establish this. She's going to say vulnerable things. Now, this is completely out of women's comfort zone until they have permission and support to do it. And that's to say, do you love me? Just simply saying, do you love me? She says, yes, I love you. And she says, how much? I mean, I've done this 1,000,000 times. Okay. It's like, I've had sex 1,000,000 times, it's if you're going to have sex, you should have verbal sex too. And there's not much to physical sex. He puts it in and she moves back and forth. So same thing with the words. It's, do you love me? He says, yes, I love you. How much you love me? I love you forever. I love you always. I love you. You're the greatest. And then, are you sure you're happy to be with me? Oh, I'm so happy to be with you. When a man can say those words and she can do the other side of it, it's very powerful. You're touching the very core of who we are as human beings, which is women's insecurity and men's feelings of inadequacy. If he just says, I love you, and she takes it in, he feels like, yes, I'm the great guy. It builds up his love. It anchors it into the higher brain. And it's no longer just this lower experience, having verbal communication like that. Not talking about what we're going to shop today and that kind of communication. It's always this sort of romantic communication that has no practical value other than it's an expression of love. And we often think, well, I've already said that. Why do I have to say it again? Or you should know that. And if a woman would say, do you love me? A man might say, well, of course I love you. What do you think I worked so hard for you? Or why did I marry you? This is all foolishness. Leave that out to the side. So you have to have an understanding of pillow talk. You see, it's just like the bedroom has its own set of rules. So then once he's step two was he's now satisfying her, and he gives her a climax. Doesn't have to be big or close to a climax. She's just getting lubrication, is now coming out of the vagina, and his fingers going in. And he's starting to see it's welcoming him in. Then comes penile interaction. Now, when the penis goes in, most men make the mistake of just pushing all the way in. Let's go for the gusto. No. There's all these nerves that go, acupressure channels that go to different organs in the body. His organs and her organs. And so
I can't believe we're out of time. I feel like this is the climax.
Just don't go all the way in. Just an inch, and then another inch, another inch, and make sure she has the time where she can experience waves of pleasure and orgasm.
And this is why everyone needs to go buy the book, to get this in detail. And John, I feel like everyone's like on the edge of their seat right now. Amazing talk today for in light of Valentine's Day. And I always just love these conversations. Everybody, I cannot recommend his books more than any other book. And as far as relationships go, as soon as my kids are old enough, they will be giving them in their Christmas stockings and for their birthdays. But thank you, John. And the website to find all of your books is
MarsVenus.com. And the book I'm talking about here is called Mars Venus in the Bedroom. a wonderful read together at night, one chapter after another after another. It makes it easy to talk about it because it's hard to talk about. And you just kind of go, oh, I like that. Oh, that sounds fun. You know, so it's a playful thing. It's a very positive, loving book on sex.
And it gets the ball rolling. So if you don't know where to start, that's where you start. And he does the work for you. So thank you again for coming. And thanks everyone else for joining us today. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram under Accelerated Health Products and across over 100 channels under Accelerated Health Radio and TV. See every supplement that we talked about, and all of my group coaching links are at sarabantahealth.com. And you can find us here on Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific and Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. And use coupon WELCOME10 for 10% off site-wide. Thanks again for joining us here on Accelerated Health Radio and TV, and have a great week. Thanks again, John.
You're so welcome.